Greetings, everyone. It is Thursday, February 26, 2026, 2626. And it's time for Thursday Chill. We're going to talk about the circus. We're going to talk about the files. We're going to talk about what my guides said this week about the big picture. So, welcome, everybody. And I know there's some people been chatting in the comments. Oh, Trinidad. I love Trinidad. Welcome, Kevin. I went to Trinidad so many years ago now for a Shango festival. Most amazing experience I had. I got to learn from these mothers, these healers. I went there for the ceremony, but then the mothers identified me as, one of them. And so I got all this private tutorials. I love the Trinidadian people. Abby wants to know if it's time for popcorn yet. We've been getting our popcorn ready for a long time. I feel like at this point, we just have to pop our popcorn whenever some good news comes our way, right? Like this week, I was just thinking today about I should pop some popcorn because we got to celebrate the wins, all the wins, right? We can't just wait for the big win. And, the wins this week, or the last week, was, Mendelssohn getting arrested. And then there was someone else arrested, I think in Poland. Someone correct me in the comments. And then mainstream media is actually talking about the 13-year-old survivor, victim of head clown. And this is so, so major. So as soon as I got that news, I went and posted a video. I was like, this is a major turning point. And now I'm seeing lots of other videos out there by other creators saying, hey, this is really major. So I'm glad I'm not alone in thinking that. I do think it's really major. Uh-oh. No, Cousin Freddie, I can't talk right now. Sorry. I want to talk to Cousin Freddie. So yeah, this is really good news that it's made it finally to mainstream media. Because remember what my guides had said a while back was that the circus was going to start fighting amongst themselves, and that they were going to eventually start leaking information about head clown, or that information was going to come out that wasn't supposed to come out, right? And so now we see that happening. And what that makes me think is like they're ready, like they're getting ready to jettison him, like he's no longer serving his purpose. And this is really exciting for me, not only because we all want to see him gone, right? But also because what my guide said this week was that him leaving is a really crucial turning point. And I think there are some people who don't get that because, I get occasionally these kind of doom and gloom people or skeptics, or I don't know what to call them, I don't get this off that often, but I still pay attention to them, who say, well, does anything matter because they never suffer consequences, right? And so, I understand that sentiment because we have seen him commit lots and lots of crimes over decades and never face consequences, right? And so it does feel like at this point, are we being foolish to even hope that there will ever be consequences, right? I understand that position. It's like it's a logical position. But what my guides told me is that him going down in whatever form that takes is going to be a crucial turning point, because it's going to change the focus of the Magatonians. And so, what I was shown a few months ago was that vision of all of these people with like their tiki torches and their pitchforks heading to the Capitol, like they did before, right? But more of them, angry. And what I saw as a precipitating event for them to get that angry was that head clown disappeared. And head clown was possibly, no longer with us, or had fled the country or something, but he was missing. And they were demanding to know where he was. And so I saw that as one possible precipitating event that would cause them to go to the Capitol. So this is one reason why his demise is more significant than just the demise of one person. It's because of that, but also because keep in mind that the way that he was able to control so many people and to get so many people on his side was through blackmail. And so allegedly, I have every once in a while to say allegedly, and this channel is for entertainment purposes only. I'm a storyteller. I'm not a journalist. So, you know, he's the one that had a lot of the information that he was using to get people to, you know, do what he wanted to do. And so when he's gone, that threat is gone, you know, assumedly, possibly, you know, is it though? So here's where the files come in. The files was his big trump card, right? He was promising all of these people who are in them, don't worry, I'm never going to let them get released. Your secret is safe with me as long as you do what I say. But now that stuff is coming out, he's losing some of his leverage, right? And the more that comes out, the less leverage he has. The less leverage he has, the more people are going to come for him. The more people are going to step out of the party line. The more people are going to start speaking back and saying, actually, I do believe in democracy. Actually, I don't believe in what you guys are doing. You know, actually, I think you've gone too far. Actually, I don't support the Gestapo, right? Like that, we're going to start to see that happen. We've started to see it already, right? It's hard to remember sometimes because we're living in this fast-paced, you know, apocalypse. But if you think back to a few months ago, there wasn't really anybody criticizing the head clown, right? There was a lot of, you know, uniformity and party line and loyalty. And now we're seeing something different. So we just saw this week, for example, the SAVE Act. GOP people are saying, hey, we're not going to do what it takes to get this through the Senate. So it went through the House, but it hasn't gone through the Senate. And it's much more difficult to get through the Senate because you need more people. And so the only way they were going to get it through the Senate was to do some filibuster something. I think it was a filibuster. Someone tell me in the comments if I got it wrong. And this is what Head Clown asked people to do. They said, look, you got to do whatever you got to do to get this SAVE Act through. And for those who don't remember, the SAVE Act is the bill that was going to make it very difficult for like straight married women who changed their name when they got married to actually go and cast a ticket in the next big joust. So of course, they designed it in part for that reason, but they also designed it to mess with transformers, right? Because transformers have new names. And so they wanted to make it so they couldn't vote, right? But they're also trying to control women, right? So what we're seeing, right, we just keep seeing more evidence that the circus is, you know, imploding from within, that there's infighting, that there are people who aren't, you know, going along with the party line, and that things are, you know, looking shakier and shakier. And then same with the Supreme Court, right? Like, I should probably get back to my character names. I'm using too many real names. Yeah, so, oh, I agree with this, what Bernie Sanders said, that they should read the files as a filibuster. But here's the problem. I mean, they could read the redacted ones, but they're not even allowing lawmakers to take pictures of the actual unredacted. Like they have them under lock and key, and you can only go in there with like a notebook and a pen. It's so ridiculous. Like there is no reason for that. That violates the law. And why? I don't know why they're going along with that. If I was one of those people, I would be in there with my secret camera, snapping all kinds of photos. Of course, I know they have a camera on them. They're watching them, also illegal. Or I would just go in there and just grab them all and bum rush out. Right? Like we need some of that kind of behavior, right? We need some of that kind of courageous behavior. because we're dealing with lawless people. And so anyway, but back to what my guides are saying. Oh, thank you, Rossi's. This is one of my, I think it's one of my mods. Telling people to buy me a coffee. Yeah. So like Amanda Ginga says, because they are all in the files. Yeah, there's just so many. That's the problem. There are so many in the files on both sides of the aisle. It's clearly more red hats, and we only know that because they're the ones that have fought the hardest to keep them hidden. So they have more to lose. But it really isn't a red hat, blue hat thing. It's just a discussing PDF thing. Thank you, I am Eloa. Yes, boost the live, hit like and share. Let me say something about that real quick, because I don't say enough about this. It's come to my attention from some of my followers that people are subscribing and being unsubscribed. And so I just want to ask everyone to please check and make sure you're still subscribed to me. And also please like and comment and share and what is it, hype? Because it has been kind of weird how my videos are quite popular and I get like 99%, approval rating for all my videos and lots of comments, but my overall like subscription count doesn't really go up much. Like it's very slowly going up. And I don't know, it's a little sus. So a couple people have told me that they were unsubscribed. So, just check that out. And the hyping, from my understanding, the hyping helps to push me out to the For You page. Is that the right word? The algorithm, so that other people will see my videos and more people will be able to, become aware of my work. And so, so thank you. Thank you to everybody who is already doing all of that, liking and hyping and sharing and subscribing and everything that you're doing. And thank you for the coffees and all that. I appreciate it. Here's another recommendation from Rossi. Thank you, Rossi's. Make sure your bell notifications are on. I always forget about that. So when you go to my channel, you can click this little bell. It's up in the corner, either the top right or top left, I think, a little bell. And when you click that bell, what it does is it's going to notify you every time I post a video or every time I go live. And that way you won't miss anything. Thank you for this. Rose Blue 4205. Thank you for your gift. Thank you for your insights and wisdom. I appreciate you. So I'm here today to talk about, information I got this week from my guides. I've posted a little bit. The most recent vision I had was like an hour and a half. So it's a lot. So I've been posting some stuff, but there's still a lot more to discuss. And so I'm going to discuss some of it here in this live, some stuff that I haven't posted about yet. So you're going to hear it first. Okay. Just want to make sure I didn't. I am Eloa, a member for 4 months, is letting us know that there is a something happening at the ranch this Saturday at 11 a.m. to build a memorial for the victims. Gaining traction. That's awesome because you announced it in my last live. I think we announced it. And so, yeah, everyone, if you're in New Mexico or you can go to New Mexico, please do this. I would love to be there. I don't have a car currently, so otherwise I would probably drive to New Mexico because I used to drive all over the place. And I love New Mexico, but I would love to honor the victims there. I mean, that would be, and look, and what about if we all bring our rakes and metal detectors, right? Dig it up, dig it up. If you saw my post this week, that was part of the vision this week from my guides, was that there are going to be all these women all over the country who are, and not just women, but it's going to be, kind of started by and organized by women. And I'm sure there'll be some theys and gays and even some men that will join them. but it's really going to be kind of spearheaded by women who are just so full of rage about all these terrible things that are happening to women and children, right? At the hands of this bad traffic ring. And so what I saw in this vision was all of these women with like rakes and metal detectors, and they called them the milk carton mamas in my vision, the milk carton mamas. So like back in the day, the missing children, and I think with the women on there too, would be on the back of the milk carton. And they stopped doing that for some reason. But I read something somewhere that it was connected to somebody who was connected to the ring that had to do with getting rid of the milk cartons. But someone researched that for me. I haven't researched it, but I remember reading something about it. So these milk carton mamas are going to be not just going to the ranch in New Mexico, but going all over the place and investigating and like combining their sleuthing activities and investigating and even digging up bodies. Like, they're going to be going around doing this. And somebody in my comments mentioned that there's a group like this in Mexico, in Mexico, this group of women that go around and investigate missing women and also go and find remains and dig them up. So, of course, it's already been done. So we can learn from them. But this was the vision I was shown happening in this country. And because women are just fed up, right? Women are just fed up with how women are treated, right? That this has been going on for so long, that all of these survivors came forward, they spoke out, they got interviewed, they filed court cases, they did all kinds of things, and nothing was done, right? And so this quiet, righteous rage is going to, is already starting a movement of these milk carton mamas, or they come up with your own name. Come up with your own name, but that's just the name I heard. There'll be a lot of names out there. Thank you to Janice Powell. Thank you, Jennifer Lisa. I appreciate your work. Love and blessings. I appreciate the love and blessings as much as the gift. Whenever I get blessings from people, whenever you bless somebody or say kind words about somebody or think good thoughts about somebody, they receive that. So I receive all of that, all of those blessings and kind words. And I feel like I'm kind of protected, like I'm in a bubble of blessings and good words, because every day so many people say so many kind things about me on my YouTube and TikTok channels that I just am blanketed in the kind words and the blessings and the prayers and the affirmations. So, oh, here's a little bit of tidbit. See, we're so good at crowdsourcing our intelligence, right? Look at Rose Blue. They're like Tennessee University has a department just to study how bodies decompose. They can tell by dirt if a person had been there in the past. See, we can all just do the research and combine our knowledge, right? And yeah, so here's someone else talking about the ranch. This person, Suzer843, has been out there a couple times this past 2 weeks. There's a memorial started there. It's been in our paper here a couple of times. Okay, thanks for that update. Somebody said the new owners are, oh yeah, there's some story about how they're trying to turn the ranch into some Christian camp or something. I think that's just a cover story that they're using to excuse why they're bringing bulldozers in, because they're trying to hide the evidence. Okay, so yeah, Amanda, why couldn't you bring your dog? It's outside. Bring your dog and go. All right, let me get back to my notes. So I have some notes, and hold on, let me find my notes. All right, so I wanted to talk about something my guides, so they were talking to me about the rise of the divine feminine, the role of women, the persistence, the different forms that it's taking. And one of the things they were talking about was communication. Um, so because we're dealing with constant surveillance now, and because we're dealing with what we're dealing with now is a circus controlled media, right? Not completely, right? Because CNN, NPR, and CNN, and now several, I think MSNBC and a few other stations, they're all talking about head clown being accused of essaying a 13-year-old, and there being 4 interviews and 3 of them are hidden, right? They're all talking about it. So obviously there's not complete control, but there's a lot of corruption and a lot of control of our media right now in the United States. And same with the social media, right? It's controlled by the corporations. And so there's a whole lot of censorship. I have been censored a lot. People I know have been censored. That's why I'm a storyteller. I mean, I was already a storyteller, but that's why I storytell on these platforms, because it's necessary. So this is the situation we're in, right? So what my guides were saying about that is that we have to become very creative about how we communicate. So they were talking about all of these new communication strategies that people are going to adopt, and I'm just gonna talk about some of them. So they talked about like old school information distribution, like mimeographs. And that, I think they were saying mimeographs as like a symbol, right? Obviously we don't have mimeograph machines anymore. Maybe we do. Maybe we need to get them out of storage. I don't know. Maybe they do literally mean mimeographs. So if you don't know, mimeographs, it's a way to reproduce something that predates photocopiers. So before that technology came out, because photocopiers use like lasers, I think. Before they had that technology, they had these things called mimeographs and mimeograph machines. I might be saying it wrong, but I remember what they look like when I was a kid in school. They're like these rollers and with ink, and you put your thing you want to copy, and it kind of, you have to crank it, and then it puts ink on all of these other pieces of paper. I don't remember exactly how it works, but I just remember what it looked like. It's kind of messy, like you can get ink on your hands and stuff. But the nice thing about it is you're not connected to anything. You're not connected to the internet. You're not connected to electricity. You're not dependent on anything that can be hacked. But it might have just been symbolic, but they were talking about these old school ways of communicating, mimeographs, photocopies, handing out photocopies of things. Like we have to go back to that. We have to get information out. People need the information. So in particular, they were talking about the files. What's going on right now is there are a whole lot of people who are not reading them because they're not on social media, or they're not on certain social media, right? And so they're not accessing them. And so they're like, some of them doing it on purpose, like with their head in the sand, like, I don't want to know if any of my people are in it, right? But these people, everyone needs to find out. And so they're talking about how people need to get the information out, and we need to find whatever way we can to get the information out. So they talked about like passing out copies, photocopies in church groups, going to hobby groups and passing out copies of stuff, going to your garden group, pasting it up, like wheat pasting it on the insides of bathroom stalls, light poles. We used to use when I was in like high school, we used to use wheat paste. Do they still use it? And all you needed was some flour and water, and you just mix a bucket of flour and water, and you take your flyer, your photo, whatever, your piece of paper, and you just I think you just dip it in the flour and water, and then you just stick it to a light pole or stick it to whatever you want to stick it to, and it sticks, because gluten is very sticky. It's a paste. It's just homemade paste. And so everyone's got flour, right? It's easy to make. So you can go, this is like very, very old school. Then they were talking about projections on the sides of buildings, right? We have some people doing that, putting projections on the sides of buildings. They were talking about movie night. Like, people used to go to drive-ins. We could have these new drive-ins where we have these projections on the sides of buildings that have information about the files or the circus or the frozen water, like information that is not being talked about in mainstream media. Go and sit in a field, project the information on the side of a building. Bring your car, make it a movie night. Then they talked about, like advertisements they used to have before. Like when you watched a movie, I've only heard about this. This predates me. This is what my parents talked about. Like during World War II, they would go to the movies, and before you watch the movie, there would be advertisements, like war propaganda, like support the troops or whatever, that the government would make these little these little films and play them before the movies, maybe after the movies too. And so they were saying, we could do that. We could actually have movie nights where we're showing movies because we need joy. But then before the movie and after the movie, or in the middle at the intermission or whatever, we put in these informational films where we talk about news that people aren't getting, right? So that it's fun. You bring your popcorn, you see friends, you get to all hang out together. Maybe you're in a park and you're projecting on the side of a building or on some big sheet or whatever, and yet you're also getting information. They also talked about radios, right? Old school radio. Should we get back to using radios? They can't control all the radio signals. So there's more control of the internet than there is of radio. Now, someone tell me if I'm wrong, but this is the impression I got from what my guides said. They said they can't control all of the radio signals. And so they're like, maybe you need to invest in radio towers. Maybe people need to crowdfund and put up radio towers, put up radio antennas. Is that what it's called? Or transmitters, and start transmitting the news, because we don't have access in other ways. So in general, the message was we need different sources of information, hand-to-hand flyers, passing things out on paper, radio, hacking. They talked about hacking, like hacking into, I'm not advocating anything illegal, disclaimer, but this is just a vision I'm discussing. But they talked about how hypothetically, some people in the story I'm telling could be hacking into TV stations and showing information, like in the middle of a Fox News broadcast, all of a sudden another program shows up. And I was like, why can't hackers do that? And they said, well, in this story, it's hard for them to do that because of the surveillance state, that they're able to track down hackers really quickly. And so that's why, so I was asking the question of my guys, and then that was their answer was, no, that would be nice, but we can't really do that. So when it comes to the hacking side quest, that's not really a side quest because of the surveillance state. So that's what they said, analog, right? You gotta find analog ways of communicating. And so they were saying, for example, like some of the stuff that I've been doing that Indivisible is doing. In fact, I'm going to one of them tonight, which is why, unfortunately, my live's only going to be like an hour and 15 minutes long tonight, because I'm going to a Whistlemania tonight. And in our Whistlemania, I was going to show it. I guess I put it in the office. We're passing out whistles, but we're also passing out information and on paper, like know your rights. So this is what you can do if you see Frozen Crew in your neighborhood. So this is what my guides were talking about. They're talking about, finding these other ways of communicating. Oh, another idea that was cute was people who work in companies can start putting messages inside or like on cereal boxes or cracker boxes. Like if you're someone who works in product production, those people could put messages on cereal boxes or maybe inside the cereal. I don't know. And they gave the analogy of like high school kids passing notes in the hall. Like that could also be a way of Like that's how people used to pass around secrets, right? If you didn't want anyone to know what you were talking about, you put it in a note and hope that the wrong person didn't find the note. And so they were talking about that too, like young people can pass information on slips of paper. They don't have to rely on, email. They don't have to rely on social media to communicate. Okay. I'm going to say a little bit more and then I'm going to look at your questions. I just wanted to share some more of what my guides were saying. So they said that the revolution, they also talked about ham radios. Ham radios can be surveyed still. So there's no way to keep that secret like a radio transmission, but it could still spread news, is what they were saying. It's still going to be surveyed, but it can still spread news. So they said the revolution that's happening is one of consciousness, but it's also one of women rising up. It's also a revolution of organizing, like the changing the way that people persist. It's also a restructuring of society, away from patriarchy, away from the nuclear family, away from corporations, patriarchal government structures. It's moving more towards decentralized, local, collaborative community structures. Okay, I'm going to stop. Sharing that stuff for now and maybe just take some questions. And I think, the reason I'm sharing this is because, a lot of what my guides give me is information about the bigger picture, information to help us connect the dots, information to help us stay hopeful and help us to navigate a really terrible and difficult situation. But they also often give me information that's practical. So every once in a while, like even though my information is primarily, spiritual, I also give practical information. So you may recall that, I don't know, a year ago, they were suggesting I tell people to get into local groups, like find 3 people in your neighborhood, form a group of 4, or find four friends that you can be in a group with. Join your local, whatever local group you can join, a knitting club, a book club, a PTA group, whatever, and start to, form community. Well, now what they're saying that kind of piggybacks on that is they're saying, okay, now we have to start using these structures for persistence, right? We don't have to create a whole new structure. We don't have to create a whole new organization for the persistence. We already have lots of structures in place, things that we're already involved in. And those structures that we already have can be repurposed or doubly purposed. Like, yeah, I get together with these women to do yoga, but then, before yoga or after yoga, we also talk about persistence activities, right? Like it can do double time. So that's what they're talking about now, is finding ways to get involved in like decentralized, local, community, collaborative work. And it could be really, really small, right? 4 people. It really, you only need one person. Somebody was pointing out in one of my posts recently that the whole Files of Epi trajectory started with a woman who wrote a book. And then because of that book, there was then an investigation and a lawsuit, like that. It was this one woman who wouldn't give it up and who was able through her work to start this ball rolling. And that was just a great example of how, one person can be so powerful. 2 people more powerful, 3, 4, right? So that was a big part of the message I got this week. And so let me look at your questions. And then I'll share some more from my guides, but I want to also, hear what you guys are saying. Okay. If I didn't acknowledge this, thank you. It's just Jamie for your super sticker. Um, oh, Norway. Welcome, Sister Norway. Yes, the whole world is watching. We appreciate the whole world watching. We need the whole world. Um, we need some help. Have you guys seen that picture in Minneapolis? The people went to the beach and put their bodies into the form of SOS. That's how bad it is there. That they're calling for an SOS. Like help. That's how we feel in the US right now. We just want people to help us. Like, can any countries help us? Can anyone help us? Okay. Here's a question from Lemon Gelato 444. Do you guys ever mention underground facilities? Not that wording, but this week they were specifically talking about, they were showing me an image of that place being dug up. They showed me the ranch being dug up, that there's a lot of stuff that's there that can be dug up. And so I don't know if that's facilities, tunnels, or just bodies, but there's a lot that can be dug up there. And so I can say that. Yeah, I didn't see the whole thing, but I did see that. I heard she was doing a good job pushing back on those bozos. Oh, we got Sister New Zealand here. Welcome, welcome. Bubs Grant 6874. Oh, someone said I'm no longer freezing when I toggle over to my notes. Okay, that's good. Yeah, and I agree with this statement by Karen Louise. A lot of media control is to make us feel helpless, powerless, and few in number. It's a lie. There are more of us than them. And so, yeah, if you didn't see that video I did, I don't know, a few weeks ago, where my guides were showing me the map and they were showing me the numbers, and they said we now have more than half of the country that is like actively persistence focused, like persistence aligned, like persistence identified, right? Persistence with an R, right? And there was a fourth that were still in that apathetic mode of sitting on their hands, nothing, there's nothing I can do, right? And then there was only a fourth, and this was several weeks ago, so it's probably less by now because we've had more revelations. With each revelation from the file, the Magatonians lose more members. And so the Magatonian section was less than 1/4 of the country. And even within that, some of them were like diehard, like sociopaths and like white supremacists and people who were just so, their identity was so entrenched with those belief systems that they're never going to change. They'll always be looking for somebody like Head Clown. If he's gone, they'll look for the next Smotsy, right? They're always going to be looking for that. But that group is very small. That group is like 10%. 10% of Magatonians. And so the other 90% are people whose minds can be changed. So yeah, we are the majority, and they are the minority. Okay. Okay, so I'm looking for questions. What? So Susti, this is really, I love to hear it. I mean, I don't know if it's true, but we keep hope alive that Twitter is reporting Head Clown might step down to avoid charges. That would be lovely. Here's the thing. Let's talk about news a little bit. Like, because we don't really have access to news like we used to, it's very challenging for me as a Metatron, not the news reporter, to know what's real and what's not. So like I reported last week about the airspace over Canada being closed down, and then it turned out that probably wasn't true. And I even have to say probably, because I even couldn't get confirmation that it wasn't true, just that I found a number of people saying that the sources they were looking at had disappeared and that maybe that wasn't true anymore. And I went to look at a source of mine, which I thought was a source on ground news, but it really wasn't. It was like I had seen several stories about this. And then I will often go to ground news to check stuff. And I went there and just did a search. And I did a search like Canada, Carney, airspace. And when I did that, a story came up. I didn't read the story. I was just like, okay, that's enough proof for me. And then I went and did my video. And I got burned because it probably wasn't true. And there were some Canadians coming in my comments like the next day saying, I don't think this is true because I'm not hearing about it and I live in Canada. So here's the thing. It's really hard to know what's what. So like today I was chasing down a story that I saw on, I think, TikTok. Several different people were saying it, that Mendelsohn was turning, state's evidence against Head Clown, that he was implicating Head Clown as the head of the ring, as running a brothel, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that sounds great, but I could not find the sources. And so then there were some people in the comments who were saying, what are the sources? And someone said, oh, it's not in the US. You have to go to foreign press. And I do look at foreign press, but I was like, okay, I can't. And they said it's in Al Jazeera. Well, I couldn't find it in Al Jazeera. And then someone else said it was in a British newspaper. I couldn't find it. So, it's challenging to know what's true and what's not true these days. Okay, let me look at more questions. Okay, and here's someone else saying, Caesar's is saying, he's leaving. He already has his money deposited. He does have an offshore account, which is kind of suspicious, right? Like when you're leaving town, that's what you do. So, yeah. So I heard stories about him singing like a canary, and I think there's going to be a lot of singing because that's what my guides told me months ago, that there were going to be a lot of people who were going to turn on other people. So we'll see who it is, though. Thank you, Moonchild Blue 62, for your gift. Appreciate it. Diane, I haven't heard anyone talk about this. Did Head Clown have that person unalived? You know what? I was told that he's not unalived. So I couldn't answer that based on what I've been told, because I was told that he is still with us. No, I wasn't told. Let me try to remember. It's hard to remember the stuff I get from my guides. Let me correct that. I was not told that. I was told they used this really weird language. They said people think he's unalived. And because they think that, they're acting this way. And so the implication I got from the way the guides put it was he's not. Oh, someone asking about the art. Yeah, the artist is Rabbit Strickland. And I did make a whole video about this painting. He's an Ojibwe artist who I used to know, and he painted it in my apartment. He's very talented. I recommend people try to support him. I actually I spent quite a bit of time trying to find links that I could give out to people so they can buy stuff from him. And I did put links in that video, but none of them seemed like they were direct links to him. They were links to places that sold his art. And I actually have been trying to find Rabbit so that I can find out from him. I sent a message on Facebook or something like, where can people support you? Actually, what I was thinking of doing is maybe I could try to get him on get him to come and be on one of my lives. Then maybe they could find a way to support him that way. Very talented artist. Okay. So I'm just looking at your questions. Someone's asking for a meditation. Maybe I have to leave right at 5:15 because I'm going to a Indivisible event. Oh, this is news that I hadn't heard from Rossi's. 11/11, I can't say that. Somebody threatened to invoke the Insurrection Act and deploy troops to quell protests against the federal officers sent to Minneapolis to enforce his crackdown. I would not be surprised by that. There was also an announcement today I heard that he was coming right out and saying that there was, no, he wasn't coming out saying, there was an executive order about canceling the midterms. And, I did say that like a week or two ago, and people weren't very happy about it, but I did say that my guide said that they weren't going to happen, but that something big was going to happen before that. Oh, this is information I didn't have. Swerwin Irwins, thank you for this. They said they checked and they're still subscribed and the bell is turned on for all. Thank you. And also it turns out you can only get 2 hypes per week. So make sure to save them for Dr. Vest. Okay, so I guess if you want to save your hypes for me, please do so. You might want to hype someone else. I mean, I don't know. But if you want to hype me, that would be great. Okay. Yeah, and there's AI. Someone's pointing out, Julie Robinette, there's AI. So sometimes we think we're watching something and we're not. It's tricky. It's tricky. That's why we need these other forms of communication, like the guides were saying, because we can't just rely on, digital communication anymore. I mean, I'm not going to abandon it because this is the way that I'm able to reach so many people, and that's a part of my work. But we have to have alternative methods of communicating. Thank you to Empathy Eyes for the gift. Oh, yay. Someone said they voted today in Texas. That's wonderful. So what my guides were talking about was all of these investigations. I feel like talking about that. So I was trying to get to your questions. Hopefully I got enough questions, and I'm going to talk a little bit more now. I'm very excited about it because they were showing me all of these women just launching all of these investigations, and like in person, I mean, different kinds of investigations, whether it's online, doing research, getting together in coffee clutches and comparing notes and saying, okay, I read these 50 files. I read these files. Here's my spreadsheet. These are the people we need to, harass online because they were in the files or whatever. Hypothetically. But they were showing all of these women, and some of them, like I said, with rakes and metal detectors, actually going to places where these bad traffic operations were held. And there was a lot of joking on my video about people going to a certain golf course and digging holes up, because that was in the files, right? There were children and women buried on certain courses of golf, especially ones that started with an M. And so, I saw these like hordes of women, with like shovels and rakes. And the rake was for like sifting through the evidence. That's what the rake was for. Like if you're an archaeologist, you don't just dig with your shovel. You have to like brush things off. You got to rake through the sand and the dirt and make sure you don't miss anything. So that was like the symbology of these women sifting through the evidence, unearthing the evidence of the crimes, bringing justice to the victims and the survivors. And for those of you who maybe didn't see that video, I distinguished between victims and survivors in one of my videos based on what my guide said. They said the victims are the ones that did not survive, right? And they're the ones who are now deceased and hidden. They need to be unearthed. They need to be honored. And then the survivors are the ones that survive. And they said that this distinction of those words is important because they said most of them did not survive. So the ones that are speaking out now, survivor is a really good word for who they are because they are the few that survived, right? They were all victims, but these are the few that survived the victimization and were not, unalived. So survivor, it has a few meanings, right? it's a way for women to take control of their lives and not be defined by their victimhood. But it's also significant because it's speaking to this small percentage of people who were in these rings who did actually live to tell the tale, right? And so we're working for the survivors and the victims. The victims, even though they're deceased, they still benefit from our working for their justice and to honor them and to speak their names, right? They still benefit. That's why, like, this memorial at the ranch that someone was talking about is such a beautiful thing, because those souls, and I can speak to this as a psychic medium, when people die traumatically, a lot of times they have a hard time passing over, and they might like hang around where they were unalived, or they might hang around their family, or different things, because they're having a hard time processing the fact that they're no longer living because they died so suddenly or traumatically. And also on the other side, they have to like go through some healing to kind of process what they went through. And one of the things that really helps souls to heal is when people do memorials for them, or when people say their name or tell stories about them or honor them. Because what all the souls want when they get to the other side is they want to know that they had a positive impact on somebody when they were here. And so when your relatives or your descendants or your friends or your students or your coworkers or whoever evoke your name after you die, or talk about how you helped them, or how you impacted them, or they tell stories about you, um, that makes the spirits really happy over there, because everybody in the end wants to have contributed something. And so the victims who were unalived, um, when they see us fighting for them, and when they see the fact that their unaliving is galvanizing us to organize to stop future unalivings, then their death has meaning. And that's really good for them, because then they feel like, okay, I didn't die in vain, because of what happened to me, my name and my experience can now be used to help others. And so things like the memorial at the ranch that's happening in New Mexico on Saturday are really powerful. And anything like that is powerful. So, like, finding out the names, saying the names aloud, digging up the remains, um, it's healing for us, and it's also healing for them, right? And so that's what they show me, this vision of these women, these milk carton mamas, they called them, going out and making names, lists of names, and digging up places and finding remains, and speaking aloud the words. And yeah, here's an example. Almac is speaking about, New Mexico should ask the Madres Buscadoras de Sonora, excuse my accent, to help at the ranch. So this is a group, I think it means like big mouth women or something, of Sonora. Is that right? My Spanish isn't great. But these are women who have been doing this work already in Mexico, where they're tracking down all of these missing and murdered women, and digging up the remains and honoring them. So yes, we could benefit by learning from them. So let me hear from people about ideas you have. Oh, somebody just said, Pauline Espinoza, in my part of Colorado, we get a weekly flyer with coupons in it and ads, and that's where missing children are posted. Yeah, we need to bring that back. Like, we need to start doing this everywhere. We need to start having announcements everywhere, and names, and tracking. Oh, that was the other thing they talked about. My guys talked about registries. So they were also talking about, and I think I talked about this in my post today. Did I post about this? About the frozen crew and how the frozen crew is connected to the bad traffic. And the frozen crew has been engaging in essay of detainees and also pulling women and children into the ring. And this has been going on since the first term of the head clown and the missing children from the cages. Those were trafficked. And so this has been going on for quite a while. And this is a part of the plan. And one thing they showed me was women creating registries. So they showed me these two movements coming together. Like we have all these people who are working against frozen water, right? Minneapolis is our kind of model of how that's done right now, the battle in Minneapolis. And then we have people who are organizing against the PDFery, right? And these two movements are going to intersect, are going to work together because the same thing is happening in both. So they showed women, and not just women, like I said, it's women and other people, but it's mostly women. And I think it starts with the women. It's galvanized by the women, the outrage of the women. Start to make lists or registries of all the women and children being detained and trying to track them so that we can uncover what's actually happening. They also said that we need more people to speak out about what's going on in the camps, especially with regard to SA, because that topic in particular is going to galvanize more people to get involved, right? So there are some people who are racist who don't care that people are being profiled and put in camps when they didn't do anything. But there are some of those people who feel that way who would be outraged if they knew that women were being essayed there or that children were being trafficked, right? Everyone's got their own moral compass, right? And everyone's got their own line in the sand. And so what my guides were saying is that a lot of people, that's their line in the sand. Like when you start essaying children, right? That's a line in the sand for a lot of people. And so when you start trafficking people, that's a line in the sand. So that we have to start these registries and to track people, especially women and children who are being detained, and try to keep track of them so that we can expose what's going on. Also, we need more of these, any survivors, like anyone who actually gets out and can speak, to speak out. And I wanted to say something about that. It's a big thing to ask. You know, we see these movies about people who underwent horrific things and then they become champions of justice. And in reality, it's very difficult to do that when you're traumatized. And I can speak from my own experience. And my experience wasn't nearly as traumatic as what these women have gone through, but I was just the victim of police brutality. And I had a lawyer who wanted me to, do a press conference, and I couldn't do it because I couldn't stop crying. And I didn't want to cry in public. And I remember thinking, how do all those champions, and I've been a justice champion my whole life, but I was dealing with severe, PTSD. And I remember thinking, how do people do that when they're in the middle of it, right? And so it's not easy to ask someone who's been victimized to get up and speak, right? But sometimes they don't have to get up and speak in front of a crowd. Maybe sometimes they just need to do like a private interview or, deposition, or right. Even that is challenging though. So it's a big ask, but we do need that. We do need some of these people, whoever was detained and got out, and there may not, and maybe that maybe they don't exist yet. Like maybe no one's been released. I don't know. But what I was shown was that's going to happen. We're going to have more and more people who are released, who are able to kind of testify to what's going on in there. Now, they did say that the circus very specifically has been hiring criminals and PDFs and people with those proclivities, because they know that those people won't be squeamish. They won't look away. They won't rat them out. They won't quit. They won't report them. They'll be perfectly okay with that behavior. And so they very intentionally have picked people like that. And that's why we don't have more whistleblowers, because you would expect more whistleblowers by now if what I'm saying is true, right? If there really is all of this going on in the camps. Some people have been talking about it. I did see some reports recently about a place called, I think, Dilley, where some reports are coming out about a special section of the camp for teen girls that's possibly being used for, terrible things. But let's move on from that subject, because I know it's triggering for people. Oh wait, before we do, someone is adding some data. Deborah Hoyne. Jim Acosta was able to speak via phone to an 18-year-old being held at Dilley in Texas with her siblings, including 5-year-old twins. And the video, including his conversation, is on his YouTube channel. Okay, thank you. Thank you for that information. Oh, yeah, here's another great suggestion by Ink and Flame Insights, walkie-talkies. Here's the thing about walkie-talkies. I've looked into them. A lot of them only have like a 5-mile range. So, yeah, they'll be useful for very local organizing, but not for anything really widespread. And I think that's why you have to go from, if you try to organize past like a few miles, you have to go from walkie-talkie to ham radios. But, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. Yeah, we do need current day code talkers. Okay, here's someone else with more information. You have to have a major license to get a CB radio, but you can get a GRMS. I don't know what kind of radio that is, with a less onerous license. Okay. Yeah, so there are different types of radios that, require different types of licenses. Oh, they're called Searching Mothers of Sonora. I thought they were called, I'm like, they're Big Mouth Mothers. Searching Mothers. Okay. Buscadores means searcher, seekers, hunters. Thank you for the correction. I can tell you, my Spanish is not very good. I used to know it a lot better. Now I just make up words, apparently. Yeah, it's important to hold ceremonies for the victims. And yes, there are, I have heard that there are 1,000, there's more than that, but 1,000 that are known, 1,000 that have been named. Think about that, 1,000 that have been named. That's going to be the tip of the iceberg. Okay. Yeah, I know someone asked me to do a meditation, but I didn't want to do one because my time is so short today. Like I have to stop at 5:15. It's a hard stop because I'm going to this Indivisible event. Yes, I'm sure they are very loud, resiliently loud. I don't know. I think I must have heard something about. I think I was just reading Boca into that instead of Bosca, like Boca. Back to basics is right. Oh, hello, Chicagoland, my home girl or homeboy. I am from Chicago. You're looking at ham radios. Okay. Yeah, this was so sad. The blind man who was unalived in Buffalo. They just put him out in the snow in a blizzard, and he did not survive. And yeah, if you want to buy me a coffee, thank you. Oh, here's a question. I just want to go through a couple of questions before. This is a question people have been asking, right? Moonchild Blue 62 is asking, is there a provision for removing the entire cabinet under some circumstances? And people kept referring to, I think it was like Article 4, Section 2. But then I saw a discussion about that, and it turned out that it really wasn't saying what people thought it was saying about being able to take out everything at once, that it was kind of a misinterpretation. So I think the answer is we don't know, because we've never been there. And if it seems to me that our Constitution really has not really equipped us to deal with someone like this. And that's why we're going to have a new Constitution. We're going to have a new government structure. We're going to have a lot of things, because what we have is not sufficient. The widespread corruption that we're now living with should not have been possible, but it clearly is. We have an entire Congress, a Supreme Court, and an executive branch that has been almost completely co-opted and corrupted. And I think a lot of us didn't know that was possible. We actually thought we had checks and balances and laws in place and whatnot. And we found out that actually we didn't have that much in place. And it wasn't enforceable. What we did have in place is not enforceable, right? So, I think it's going to have to be the people. Forever DC, do you feel the disappearances of Indigenous women and children that's been known to have been going on for so long has anything to do with JE and the ranch? I do. So this is actually already kind of well known in Indigenous communities. So there's this whole movement, missing and murdered Indigenous women. And Native women are significantly more likely to be essayed and to be abducted and to be missing than any other ethnic group. And if you talk to Native folks, what they'll tell you is that most of the perpetrators of this are non-Native. So it's not, there are Native perpetrators. It's not like there aren't Native essayers. There are. But there's a unique situation where, because of our history, because the United States has a long history of unaliving, kidnapping, and essaying Indigenous women, and because the way the federal law is set up, there's a lot of loopholes for people who do this. There are a whole lot of palm-colored men who take advantage of that and pursue Indigenous women because they know they're much less likely to be prosecuted. And so let me just explain that for a minute in terms of law, Indian law. If you live on a reservation, you live on sovereign Indian land where U.S. law doesn't apply. And so for most of the things that happen on a reservation, they're addressed by tribal law by that nation. The exception to that are federal crimes. And so I think abduction and SA are identified as federal crimes. I'm not sure I have this exactly right, but what happens is if you're a woman who has been assaulted, your crime exists in this kind of valley between these two legal systems where the sovereign nation or the tribe is not allowed to prosecute that crime, but the federal government is not interested in prosecuting that crime. And so grapists know, there are some grapists who know this, and they know that if they go and abduct an Indigenous woman, the chances of them facing any kind of prosecution are much smaller than if they were to abduct a palm-colored woman. And that's also true for different reasons, for racial reasons. If you grape or abduct a Black woman, the police are much less likely to pursue you, right? So yes, there are, because of that, there are really high rates of assault of Indigenous women, and yes, some of those women are being funneled into traffic rings. I'm sorry we're talking about all of this really depressing stuff and triggering stuff, but unfortunately, this is the country we're living in right now. And let's switch the topic real quick. I only have a few minutes left. Mesh-tastic radios are inexpensive. Thank you, Salty Sailor, for that bit of information. Let's, we got to crowdsource our knowledge. Thank you for this. Rossi's one of my mods, encouraging everybody to help out the channel. And I'm going to make another announcement about that. I've been told by some of my followers that they subscribed and then they were unsubscribed and they had to resubscribe. So please check your subscription if you think you're subscribed to me. Check your notifications. Make sure you've hit the bell. Do all those things. Oh, look at Rossi. Thank you. You can become a Patreon member for the behind the scenes videos. Someone asked, how do you buy me a coffee? See that little QR code up there? I'm not sure which way it is. You can just take a picture of that with your camera and it will take you to the link to buy me a coffee. And if that's too difficult, you can also just go to my bio on my channel and there's a link there that you can go to. Just click on that. Oh, here's a question from 10S Junkie. I want to have input into the new Constitution. How do you see us doing that? Well, I do see the rise of women, the rise of the divine feminine. I do see matriarchy. I do see more local governing, more collaborative governing, more councils, less hierarchical governments. And so these changes that are going to be made are going to be the kind of things that include input from a lot of people. It's not going to be like these elites deciding. We're moving away from that. So if you look at patriarchal structures, they're top down, they're hierarchical like triangles, and matriarchal structures are circular, where you have like groups of people working together to make decisions rather than people on the top making decisions for people on the bottom. Matriarchy, if you look it up, matriarchal and patriarchal structures of governing are just very different structures. And it's not about, matriarchy is not about women controlling people. Patriarchy is about men controlling people. That's why we have a society where the majority of all of the leaders and the corporations are all run only by one gender, because that's in a patriarchy. It's meant to be that way, that only the one gender has control. But in a matriarchy, that's not the case. In a matriarchy, all genders have input. I want this, when he signed, here's a question from Dr. Domenico. When he signed, I forgot my character name for him. It's been so long since I've talked about him. When he signed into law that executive order regarding secession and the structure of government should something happen, I felt like that was really a clear sign that they knew what had happened. They knew that this was not a legitimate outcome. And that thing that they put in place is meant to deal with a situation where there's a power vacuum. So I think they were anticipating that was going to happen. And we can see how that would happen, right? Like if more of these files come out and enough of them come out, then there's either going to be pressure for him to leave or he's going to flee, right? Because of the tides turning. And then there might be secession issues, especially if others flee. Like, let's say enough files are released that a number of people, I think I saw last week someone said that there were 34 members of the Circus that are in the files. So let's say all 34 are exposed and all those people leave, you have a vacuum, right? Where maybe that's when that executive order comes into play. And also, I just want to remind people, so I'm out of time. One last thing I want to remind you that my guide said, that I've been saying consistently for quite some time, is that the files of Epi and the Joust manipulation are all connected, right? The circus, it's all connected, right? And so they're dominoes. When one thing falls, it puts pressure on other parts to fall. And so the more files that come out, the more likely it is that the finagling of the joust comes out because it's in there. And that's also why they're trying to hold back certain files, because that is in there and that will be revealed. So thank you everybody for coming to my live. I have to end at a certain time today because I'm going to do some in real life on the ground activism with Indivisible tonight. So thank you for everything, for your gifts, for your likes, for your comments, for showing up, for being a part of the conversation. And I will see you again next time. Thank you. Oh, was there something I was supposed to announce? I always forget announcements. Maybe not. I have a new course, Strategic Psychic. If you want to learn psychic development, I should announce that. But other than that, I think that's it. I will see you next time. And everyone, take care of yourselves and be well.